Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Twitch. My name's Chris Horder. I'm part of the solution architecture team here in Sydney, Australia. And today we're going to be talking about some of the releases and service announcements that happened at reInvent in 2020. Today I'm joined by John Hawkins, Evgeny Minkovich, and Tom Liu. And across the team here, we're going to be talking specifically about services and features that were released that are of most interest to data analysts and data engineers and our machine learning and data science folks. So welcome, everyone. Really looking forward to covering off the content that was launched. And, as always, any questions that you have today, please pop them in the chat. We've got Bianca and Najib and the other folks in there answering any questions you may have. And really looking forward to the session. Now, a couple of quick things. This is our first time, or certainly my first time using Twitch as a platform. So really keen to get your feedback. So we'll be having a survey at the end. So please let us know how you felt about the whole day. And we're also going to be doing some prizes as well. So I've got a couple questions. And so first ones to answer in the chat room, we'll be looking at getting a $50 voucher to, of course, the amazon.com.au website. So really exciting stuff. The questions are very tricky. We were having some good fun with them before. So looking forward to those components. So with that, I'll kick over to Evgeny, and we'll be starting to talk about some analytics stuff. So, hey, Evgeny. What do you want to tell us about some of the analytics releases that launched last year?
Thank you, Chris. My name is Evgeny Minkovich. I'm a solution architect at AWS, and my special interest is data and analytics. I want to start with a story. A few months back, I had a conversation with a customer who used DynamoDB to store their users' profiles. And it's a great solution, effectively. A millisecond latency or at any scale for their data requests. But one of the special requirements that they wanted to do a full text search on the data, on the profiles of their users. And DynamoDB probably not the best positioned service to do that, because due to the partitioned structure, partitioned architecture of the DynamoDB, that would effectively mean that the customer would need to read every partition, every record, every field. That could be quite cost ineffective. Is there a better way to do that? Potentially. I think Amazon Elasticsearch Service would be the perfect solution for this use case. And this is a common pattern that we currently see from a lot of our customers. The consolidation between the operational and analytics services. Customers want to use best fit services for analytics and operational data to analyze their operations quicker and get the insight and act on the insight faster. And that is exactly the use case that our Lakehouse architecture addresses. Lakehouse architecture is a combination of our purpose-built database and analytics services. It's enabled with a seamless data movement between them, like outside in, inside out, and these arrows along the perimeter. So let's look at the core components that comprise Lakehouse architecture. It starts with Amazon S3. And customers have been building data lakes on S3 longer than any other cloud provider. And usually in the combination with Amazon Athena, an interactive serverless query service, just to quickly analyze the data in S3. In addition to the data lake, customers use the plethora of our purpose-built database and analytics services: EMR, Elasticsearch, DynamoDB, RDS, and Cloud Warehouse Redshift. That effectively gives the builders the right tool for the job to get high performance and cost efficiency. To move the data between the services, our customers used AWS Glue, the serverless data integration service. And finally, AWS Lake Formation used to manage security and the governance over the data, regardless if it sits in the data lake or in one of these purpose-built databases. So let's have a look at what improvements we're bringing into this architecture. The first that I would like to bring up is the one that I consider maybe one of the most fundamental.
Mm,
We're launching a strong read after write consistency for S3 in all applications, all regions. I had a use case recently where I had to run an Athena query across millions of records spread around hundreds of thousands of files. Halfway through the query, I realized that I need to re-upload the whole data set and run it again. So what I did, I essentially stopped the query, delete the files, uploaded them again, and run the query again, only to find out that about 10% of the results actually came from the previous data set. That's eventual consistency.
mm,
So what happened there, that even though upstream process, the deletion and upload, reported that, hey, every single file has been replaced, the downstream process still saw parts of the older data set. And it's a common problem.
mm,
Customers who are using big data analytics often require access to the object immediately after write. And to work around the eventual consistency before, we had to resolve to using special solutions like Apache Spark S3 guard or EMR file system, which is effectively employing DynamoDB at the back to make sure that we're reading the recent version of the object.
mm.
With
Did that
Amazon,
simple? Oh, sorry, Evgeny, I was just going to ask, did that simplify? I mean, this has got a view to simplify all those applications now, right?
essentially, we are removing a part of infrastructure. We're throwing
Mm,
away this DynamoDB. So it's simpler, it's less costs. And
mm,
what is probably one of the less understood impacts, at least for me, is that it opens up Amazon S3 to be used by a plethora of other applications that previously could not, because they would rely or they would need a strong consistency, but they couldn't use this additional technology to ensure the strong consistency. With strong consistency out of the box, it's super easy for any applications in any region to start using S3.
Yeah, and look, if you're interested in the technology behind how we achieve strong consistency on S3, please do check out the YouTube Amazon Web Services channel. And there's a couple of talks on there how they did it, and it is very close to rocket science. Let me tell you.
Thank you, Chris. The next feature that I want to talk about is essentially multi-destination support for the replication in S3. Customers used S3 replication to create a replica copy for a variety of reasons. It could be a backup, it could be compliance requirement, or in case of the multi-region replication, it could be the requirement for low latency performance.
Mm,
And previously, customers had to design their own solution. With S3 multi-destination replication support, there is no longer a requirement to design it. You just configure your S3 and it will deliver a copy of your data either in the same region or across regions. Think about of cloud formation deployment,
mm,
specifically creating Lambda functions. In
mm.
order for that to work, the source code for the Lambdas need to be in a bucket in the same region where this cloud formation script is being run. And imagine you would need to deploy it across 5, 10 different regions. You would need to potentially create the
Mhm.
distribution logic within your CI/CD pipeline. With multi-destination support, the CI/CD pipeline can put it in a single bucket, and S3 will do the rest.
Yeah, I've got a customer that's actually looking to use this feature to actually help achieve some cost reductions. They have a compute heavy workload in terms of machine learning workload that they're running on AWS. They want to take advantage of the different spot markets in the different regions, and so what they're doing is looking to use S3 to distribute the data across all the different regions, and then use compute in the lowest cost region where the spot markets are. You can take advantage of the spot markets, and especially in the different instance families across there as well. So yeah, really great use case.
Effectively, with multi-destination support for S3 replication, we are pushing the undifferentiated heavy lifting of moving the data onto the S3.
Mm,
makes it easier to control the environments. Let's look at the closest friend of Amazon S3 for the data lake purposes, Amazon Athena.
mm.
Customers use Amazon Athena to analyze data directly in S3 using standard SQL language. It's a serverless server, so there is no infrastructure or setup to manage. It allows quick analytics. Just put the data in S3 and run your SQL queries. So with Athena V2, we focused on improving performance, governance, and integration. We have optimized the difficult operations like joins, order buys, and aggregates, making it faster for specifically the larger data sets. We've introduced the schema evolution support. If previously there is a new field happened to be added to the recent data, the customer would need to recreate the whole table. Now, with the schema evolution support, it can be done on a single partition. So the previous partitions can be left intact, and the new schema is applied to only the partitions from, let's say, this moment going forward. That effectively simplifies the whole process on the condition that the schema is a backward compatible. And we've introduced federated query. It's a new Amazon Athena feature that
Mm.
enables data scientists and engineers to query custom external data sources directly from Amazon Athena using standard SQL. And Amazon Athena executes those queries using data source connectors implemented with AWS Lambda. And customers can also use AWS Lambda to design their own custom user-defined functions to be called directly from the SQL queries.
Yeah, I could see a lot of people looking to integrate Salesforce or SAP data directly into their warehouse. Really, really interesting use case there on the federation.
Exactly. And
Mm,
it allows you to pull the data in without actually building this complex ETL services.
mm.
Let,
Yeah, and B2 is also GA as well, by the way, so you can take advantage of that today.
yes, and we are in Sydney, so I'm always interested. Has this service been made available in Sydney? And yes, it has.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
look
always good
at
news.
AWS Lake Formation, which helps customers to build and secure data lakes in days instead of months. Lake Formation allows our customers to move, store, catalog, and clean your data faster. It simplifies the security management, makes it easier to find and get access to the data. And with a central point of control, it helps customers to analyze data usage patterns and tracking the lineage of the data within the data lake. So we are announcing the three key, in my mind,
Mm,
features. First, it's a transactional support. A lake formation introduces a new type of S3-based data lake table called a govern table, which is supports atomic, consistent, isolated, and durable transactions from the get-go. Coming back to the previous example that I've used, where I had to query millions of records across hundreds of thousands of files. If it was a governed table, I could have opened a new transaction and I could start it to write the new data set without the impact on already running transaction, only to make the new data set available by committing this transaction. Another feature that we are releasing for the AWS Lake Formation is row-level security. Our customers loved row-level security in Quickside and Redshift that allowed them having all the data in one place with granular permissions instead of packaging them up into the larger boxes and controlling it on the, let's say, schema or account basis. And the last bit is automatic storage optimization.
mm,
Uh, as you probably know, the performance of the data lake queries depends on the balance between the number of the files in the data lake and the size of the files. And some applications, for example, it's usually around streaming, like Kinesis data streams, they tend to create a lot of smaller files in S3. Lake Formation Storage Optimizer automatically compacts those files asynchronously in the background, and that results up to 7-8 times in the performance improvement.
Wow.
So we've looked at the data lake formation, the data lake. Let's look at our purpose-built cloud data warehouse. Amazon Redshift is a cost-efficient cloud data warehouse providing fast performance at any scale. Redshift delivers up to 3 times better price performance than any other cloud data warehouse today, and it is at least 50% less expensive with clear and transparent pricing. I specifically want to focus on the new node types that we made available, RA3, that allows our customers to scale their compute and storage separately. It uses S3 at the back as a storage layer. So let's look at what we've introduced to make this functionality even better. We are announcing public preview of Advanced Query Accelerator for the Redshift. It's a big, high-speed cache architecture that sits on top of S3 and can scale out to process the data across multiple nodes in the back. Essentially, what Aqua does, it brings the compute to the storage layer. Data doesn't need to move back and forth between the storage and the compute, and it effectively enables Redshift to run the queries up to 10 times faster than any other cloud data warehouse today. Aqua is perfect for offloading heavy operations such as aggregations, filtering, compression, or encryption. And this is not the only performance issue that we have tackled. Next feature is Amazon Redshift cluster relocation. Previously, if cluster wanted to implement resiliency to to availability zone failures, they would need to either build their additional standby cluster in another availability zone, which is additional costs, or alternatively, they would need to rely on restoring the cluster from a snapshot, which can require time. The cluster relocation feature moves a cluster to another AZ in just one step. It literally takes minutes, just the time to restart the cluster in the new AZ. Because the data based on the Redshift managed storage is already there. It says 3 at the back. And the application that uses the cluster doesn't need any changes. It's just the same endpoint. And what we found out that customers also decided to invoke the relocation of the cluster sometimes when they saw that resource availability were disrupting the normal operation of the cluster, specifically when they decide to scale out the clusters. So if we're talking about the managed storage, there is another feature that I really, really like, data sharing. It's an instant, granular, and high performance data access across different Redshift clusters. So customers can run different workloads on different compute nodes without the need to copy or move the data. It makes possible to scale individual workloads, individual tasks to the price and performance profiles that they need and avoid interference. For example, like in the cases when we have an ETL cluster producing the data and multiple BI consumers. If you decide to run an experiment and you don't want to disrupt the already working operations, or if you want to deliver the output of your analytics to your customers as a data product, ready made for analysis right away. This feature probably will be also appreciated by the CFOs who can get this way the detailed cost attribution for the most expensive component of the analytics, the compute.
Yeah, just on that, Evgeny, just before you move on, I've got a customer that uses a pattern very similar to this in the existing infrastructure, and what they do is they actually have a really heavy cluster that produces all the data. So they employ, a number of different warehousing techniques. They actually follow the Kimball methodology. So they have all their data land in a rather large cluster and process it all for an hour or so. And that's actually, I think it's a 16 node cluster from last I remember. That then gets dropped into S3 and then loaded into the consumer cluster, which is actually quite small. And then that just serves out the analytical queries that are coming from their engagement engine. So I think it's going to be really helpful for customers that are already doing that kind of thing to have that Redshift managed storage to really help with those kind of deployments. Yeah.
It cuts the time of the data integration solutions. So effectively, you write the data and it's immediately available somewhere else for someone else to do their bit.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
in the future, we're planning to release the data sharing not only between the Redshift clusters, but also to share it with the data lakes. Uh, I would like to talk about how we make the managing of the clusters easier with automatic table optimization. Previously, customers would need to spend hours analyzing the expected workloads to design distribution and sort keys, only to do it again when the workload evolves. With automatic table optimization, which is based on the ML algorithms, it makes it super easy. You just define the table as auto and let the advisor system to figure out, based on the queries being run, what is the best distribution and the sort key. It will automatically generate the alter table statement in the back and run the optimization. And it's a continuous process. So Redshift will always keep looking what is happening with the queries. And if your application evolves, changes, it will run it again and again, always keeping the Redshift cluster in the optimized state.
And that's GA now,
And it's GA
Evgeny.
now.
Awesome. Just another quick question. You've mentioned the RA3 node types a couple of times with Redshift. Customers should be looking to move to those now. They seem to have quite a lot of new features and a lot of quite a good price to performance ratios on them as well.
Oh, absolutely. In my mind, it's exactly the next step that everybody who is using Redshift should take into account. And specifically to make it easier, we recently released a new node type in RA3 family, which is, I think, closer to the 3 times being less expensive than previously available RA3 node. So if
Wow.
you're using Redshift cluster, absolutely have a look.
Lots to make the CFO happy today. All right.
Let's make the CFO happy today.
Awesome.
Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is the preview of the Redshift federated query for Aurora and RDS, MySQL compatible. Another popular database engine that is commonly used in the field. Federated queries for the Postgres-based Amazon RDS and Aurora was available since April last year. And it's again the same pattern. It allows you to analyze your operational data faster and act on the analytic insights quicker. We'll talk later about our operational purpose-built databases. Now let's continue to look at the data analytics, and specifically, let's look at the business dashboards. Quickside. Quickside is a serverless, interactive, modern self-service BI solution that seamlessly scales from tens to tens thousands of users without any infrastructure management or capacity planning. What's interesting that one of our biggest customers is actually Amazon with 425,000 users, and they don't need to manage any servers or infrastructure. One feature that customers specifically loved about Quickside is auto narratives, where there is automatically generated summary that interprets and describes the data, what data means, allowing all the users to share the same understanding of what the dashboard, the data represents. And what we've heard from the customers, they wanted to interact with their dashboards in a similar way, simply by asking questions. What's
Mm.
my best performing segment? What's my year-over-year growth? The questions that are typically asked to the BI team. And you know how it usually goes. You ask the question, and then you need to wait days and maybe even weeks, depending on how busy the BI team is, to get the answer.
Well,
The
yeah,
new feature.
oh, sorry, I was just going to say, Evgeny, I love that SQL was a language originally written for business users, and now it's turned into, a language for database engineers or data science folks or data engineers, and and now we're asking a machine to tell us what the top five, billing customers are, or what have you. So, yeah, interesting times for QuickSight.
Yeah, we need to start slowly building up the capabilities that bring us to the bright future where you get the question and you get the answer, right?
Mm,
And that's where the first step, the Quickside Queue, that
mm,
enables users to essentially ask a question in a plain written language and get the answer in seconds.
mm,
It effectively makes BI more accessible to everyone, reduces the time to get the actual insight that you're after.
mm,
It's based on the deep learning and machine learning algorithms, and it's pre-trained on a various domains such as sales, marketing, operations, retail, HR, you name it.
mm.
Uh, and one interesting feature that I particularly like that if Quickside Queue doesn't really understand what's being asked specifically, it will present a list of possible options, what it thinks it could be. It allows the person asking the question to select the possible option from that list, and remembers the answer for the future use.
Oh.
This way, QuickSight Q always retrains itself for this particular organization needs.
Mhm.
So now we've looked at how we can help to get to the insights quicker for the teams who don't want to or don't have the time to meddle with the technology at the low level.
Mm.
Let's look at how can we help data scientists and data engineers. The folks that who like to construct state-of-the-art solutions using the latest open source big data frameworks, Spark, Hive, Presto, HBase, Flink, and Hudi. Amazon EMR allows these teams to easily create clusters and run these frameworks to process petabyte scale data, focusing on what's important and taking away the undifferentiated heavy lifting of preparing and running those infrastructures. Like Athena, EMR runs directly against the data stored in your S3 and achieving this decoupling between the compute and storage. So what's new? We are announcing that implementing the new version of AMR specifically focused on the performance improvements. You probably know that one of the frameworks that is available with AMR, Apache Spark, recently have released Apache Spark 3, which was already focusing on the performance improvements. And we've looked at optimizing EMR even further to make it the fastest place to run Spark workloads. It's 1.7 times faster than using standard Apache Spark at 40% of the cost.
Mm.
EMR optimizations are fully compatible with the open source, so your workloads don't need to change to make use of them. For instance, Presto runs at 2.6 times faster at 80% of the cost. And if you opt out to use Graviton 2 as our new processor, ARM-based processor that we released, uh, you will get up to the 76% lower cost at 3.6 times faster execution.
Mm.
How we've measured? We effectively run the same workload using Apache Spark with AMR optimization enabled and without AMR optimization enabled and compare the performance. The other feature that we are releasing is the Amazon AMR on Amazon EKS. which effectively gives the fully managed EMR on Kubernetes. If the customer wants to consolidate all the infrastructure on one technology, or to achieve the multi-availability zone resilience, or potentially to have the analytical workloads to sit closer to the operational, to call the microservices implemented on the Kubernetes. That's exactly the feature. With AMR on AKS, customers no longer need to provision dedicated resources on EC2 and no longer need to self-manage big data frameworks on AKS. You get all the same EMR capabilities on AKS as on EC2, such as access to the latest frameworks, performance optimizations, auto scaling, and Spark UI or EMR notebooks. Talking about the developer efficiency, I would like to talk about EMR Studio, an integrated development environment that we are delivering as a fully managed application enabled with a single sign-on. What does it help? How does it help? Single sign-on allows the developers, data scientists to log in directly to the studio, bypassing the need to go into their AWS console first. And it comes prepackaged with Jupyter notebooks, automatic infrastructure provisioning, and job diagnostics. You can actually create a EMR environment from within the studio, run your workload there, and shut down the environment. Customers can analyze the active and terminated clusters from within the studio. The detached nature of the studio allows developers to build their pipelines in the studio using the architecture services, using the orchestration services such as AWS Step Functions or Apache Airflow.
So that's no more logging into the master node, creating SSH tunnels and all that kind of stuff that we used to do previously. It's all just in that notebook now. Awesome.
It is much easier, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you kind of providing a focused environment where you can connect to the studio, get in the flow, and get your job done.
Awesome.
Speaking of Apache Airflow, uh, Apache Airflow emerged as a fantastic tool to manage all sorts of data pipelines. It lets the scientists and engineers define that flow in the Python and reuse the hundreds of built-in or community-created operators and steps, including the integration to the AWS services. And we wanted to make it easy for our customers to use Apache Airflow. So we are releasing Amazon managed workflows for Apache Airflow. Just create an environment, upload your DAGs and plugins to S3, and access the UI.
Yeah, that's really great. It was always a bit of a challenge scaling self-managed Airflow before, having done that myself, and just having your files land in S3 and then the service managing all that are really great for availability and all those kind of things. Fantastic.
From my perspective, again, the simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. The most valuable resource is actually the people minds should be focusing how to make the solution better, not how to run the infrastructure that enables writing a solution. So
Awesome.
let's talk a little bit about streaming services. One of the challenges that customers had with streaming services is that naturally decoupled application, and that's actually the benefit of having a streaming service in between the data producer and data consumer, could evolve at different pace. And occasionally that could result in the data evolution on one side of this equation and result in a data schema mismatch. It was a bit hard to coordinate the data format changes across many systems owned by different teams. So how customers solve this problem? It was either by using open source technology that they would need to implement themselves on resolving to proprietary, specifically Kafka compatible schema registries. Some customers just decided not to use a registry at all, which has an impact on the developer productivity and the solution quality. With AWS Glue Schema Registry, it is easy for developers to centrally discover, control, and evolve schemas, which improves the data governance and the quality of the streaming applications. We provide a number of easy integration points for the managed streaming for Kafka, Kinesis data analytics for Flink, essentially. And Schema Registry is serverless and free to use. The other question that we were getting from the customers was to the ability to retain the data in the Kinesis data stream for longer. Uh, Effectively, if you wanted to analyze your data or use it for something else, such as machine learning or analytics, you would need to come up with your own solution to export the data from the Kinesis data streams to either S3 or DynamoDB. With data streams long-term retention, you can now have up to 1 year of streamed data available in the same data source that is used for the real-time application. So having both real time and all the data retained in the same data stores make it easier, unifies the operational aspects for real-time applications and analytics or machine learning. The other feature that I'm specifically interested and excited is AWS Lambda for streaming solutions. It's one of the easiest ways of processing a stream of data. Just write a Lambda, connect it to the stream, let it go. The challenge was that AWS Lambda originally was not built for analytical processing. So specifically, working around errors or maintaining state was a bit of a challenge. So the customers would either use an external data store or use services like Kinesis Data Analytics for Apache Flink, SQL-based data analytics on Kinesis, or EMR, just to provide the scaffolding around the code that needs to make sure to process one record at a time. So AWS Lambda recently announced 2 features that makes it easy to use in the data engineering use cases. First one, checkpointing. If there is a mini batch that AWS Lambda processes, and there is a failure in the mini batch, the Lambda would understand at which record the failure has occurred and retry the processing of this mini batch from that record. Previously, it would be the whole mini batch that needs to be processed. And the second feature is the state preservation, which effectively allows Lambda to be used as a simple aggregate or state-based solutions for up to 15 minutes tumbling windows. The state effectively passed as the context to the Lambda invocation, where you can see what was the previous state of this particular variable is.
That's a big update for streaming processing in Lambda. It's really it's a massive update. It's very helpful.
We get a lot of questions. What is the simplest way to process the data from either Kafka or Kinesis data streams? And the answer nowadays is use Lambda. Much, much, much easier. And another fantastic feature is that AWS Lambda now supports reading the stream and processing the stream for any Kafka clusters. Previously, we supported Amazon managed streaming for Kafka clusters. But it turned out to be such a popular option. So we're releasing this feature for any Kafka flavor, managed or self-hosted. As far as there is a network connectivity to the Kafka cluster, you can hook up your Lambda and start processing the records.
And that's GA. So, yeah.
And it's GA. So it's available right now. Go and try it out. Now let's look at our purpose-built databases. Aurora Serverless version 2. two key features coming with Aurora Serverless version 2 engine. First is the capacity management. Previously, Aurora Serverless increased the capacity by doubling it every time it needs to scale up. With Serverless version 2, we adjust capacity in fine-grained increments, providing just right amount of database resources that application needs. So if you compare with paying for the capacity for the peak performance versus Aurora Serverless fine-grained incrementals, you can get up to 90% of costs saved. And the second feature, or rather I need to say a number of features, that Aurora Serverless version 2 supports a full set of Aurora features: global databases, read replicas, backtrack, undo button for the DBAs. It's available in preview for MySQL compatible edition of Amazon Aurora, and we are planning to make Postgres version available very soon. As you can imagine, Amazon Aurora is a super popular service. We have big customers looking to replatform their core operations onto Amazon Aurora. But some customers have legacy workloads that are running on the SQL Server. And even if they can migrate the data from the SQL Server to the Aurora, specifically Aurora with a Postgres compatibility, they would need to spend quite significant amount of time to adjusting their application code, switching the database drivers, verifying the application behavior hasn't changed, maybe rewriting their T-SQL stored procedures. That effort could take months. And some customers decided to just stick with SQL Server. What we're announcing is the new feature, Babelfish for Aurora PostgreSQL, which enables Aurora to understand queries from applications written for Microsoft SQL Server. With Babelfish, application can run the same SQL statements or against Aurora PostgreSQL that they would run against SQL Server with no application changes. Babelfish understands the SQL Server wire protocol and T-SQL. So there is no need to switch database drivers or rewrite your application queries. And once you've done the testing, you can just shut down Microsoft SQL Server and save on the licensing cost. We think it's one of the more significant features that we are releasing. So we're making it available as open source solution under Apache 2.0 license. It will be available in GitHub later this year. So we looked, yes. Okay. We looked at the purpose-built databases, data lakes, analytics services. What about the glue that ties them all together? Let's look at AWS Glue. AWS Glue provides the capabilities needed for data integration to allow you to use the right tool for the job. And to make it even easier, we announced quite a few interesting features. First one is AWS Glue Studio, a new visual interface for AWS Glue that makes it easy to create ETL, extract, transform, load jobs and monitor these jobs using just visual UI. You can author the whole solution without actually writing any Spark code. It makes the data preparation tasks more accessible for the wider data engineering community, especially for those who are new to Apache Spark or who are used to the visual interfaces. And if you're a data scientist, you probably want to do some data exploration work even before you start thinking about transforming the data. To simplify these workloads, we're announcing AWS Glue Data Brew. As you know, preparing the data for analytics or machine learning projects can be time consuming. Specifically, if you need to automate this process and run it again and again and again. customers can spend up to 80% of their time in data preparation tasks before actually starting to look at analyzing the data. Data Brew makes it easy for data scientists and data analysts to look at the data, normalize the data, cleanse it, and essentially prepare. We provide 250 built-in transforms, and the whole solution, the recipe that you build, can be automated to run on the new data sets as they arrive. So as the AWS Glue Data Brew is a serverless solution, so you don't need to manage the infrastructure. So let me come back to the first use case where the customer could potentially have used the Elasticsearch service to analyze the data from the DynamoDB. Normally, it would require quite a complex pipeline. Create a data stream of the changes from the DynamoDB, implement your own solution to capture those changes and propagate to the Elasticsearch. So what we are announcing is AWS Glue Elastic Views, which is effectively a solution to create a materialized view from multiple data sources directly in the destination data source. It's a copy of the source data in the destination data source. AWS Glue Elastic Views would monitor the source data sources, and if there are any changes, automatically propagate those to the destination. It automatically watches the resources required and scales up and down as needed. The change would be available in the destination location in seconds. So it can be used for both operational and analytics use cases. So
Very excited about that feature. Yeah.
I'm looking forward. It's available in the preview. If anyone interested, please ping your account team and they can arrange the preview for you. Let me quickly look at what we've discussed today. Lakehouse Architecture on AWS makes easier to use the right service for the job, no matter what's the format of the data that comes in, no matter the speed, the volume, or the shape of the data. We've touched based on every single service on data on this diagram, potentially except for the SageMaker. I left SageMaker to our sages from AI/ML team, who will shortly cover all the new features there.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Evgeny. So there was lots of learnings in there for me, and I hope for everyone. Who knew so many things rhyme with glue? It's a glue, elastic views, and data brew. But now let's move on to our quiz. So here's our first question for today. First person to get the right answer, so A, B, C, or D, into the chat wins the $50 voucher to amazon.com.au. So let us know, but I'll read out the question. What is the newest Redshift instance family? Is it EC3, DS1, R3PO? That's Evgeny's one, and RA3. And it looks like we've got one, Flux Quantum. Looks like you're in. Well done. Okay, next question. So we'll just have two questions before we get into the SageMaker stuff. Hang on. Okay. Which two services are at the center of a data lake house, of a lake house architecture? So Redshift, EMR, S3, or Athena? Oh, there we go. Father Goblin. Well done. Oh, hang on, no. Wrong answer. David Goodridge. You're in with C and D. Well done. Awesome. All right. Well, let's move on to our sages, as Evgeny called them, Tom and John. Let's bring those guys in. Hey, Tom and John. And we'll throw to Tom's screen. Here we go. All right. Well, I'll hand over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Evgeny and Chris. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Tom Liu. I'm a technical account manager specializing in machine learning. In the sections, I will be doing a quick recap on reInvent 2020 new AI services features and also embedded ML services on Amazon, Redshift, and Neptune in Accenture. And then my colleague, John Hawkins, a machine learning specialist solution architect, will talk about Amazon SageMaker new services. With the sections, we hope that you learn some which may be useful for your use case. If you want to learn more, please go check our product websites or reach out to us. Now, before starting off, a quick question to you. Why AI ML services and technology become more and more important for businesses today? There can be many reasons for that, but essentially, it's mainly because with ML adoption, it's potentially much easier to scale to provide more accurate insights to help business make informed decisions. Now, to start with, I would like to do a quick introduction on AWS ML stack. At the top layer, we have AI services, which allow developers to easily and add intelligence to any applications without needing ML skills. How simply it can be. It's like preparing delicious instant noodles. All you need is hot water. For example, we have pre-trained models which are ready to use, such as doing sentiment analysis with Comprehend, language translation with translation. It's essential. And also, we support you to do custom model training easily. You just need to provide training data and call high-level APIs for your ML problems. And our service will manage model training, tuning, and deployment for you. At the middle layer is Amazon SageMaker, which provides every developer and data scientist with the ability to build, train, and deploy machine learning models at scale. Customers achieve up to 10 times improvements in data scientist productivity with the service. Comparing to AWS AI services, Amazon SageMaker gives you great flexibility to build your models and easily standardize your ML practices. It's like providing a dream kitchen. All you need is creativity and focus on cooking your favorite dishes. At the bottom layer, the framework and infrastructure. They are for expert practitioner develop the framework of their choice as a managed services in SageMaker or use AWS deep learning armies directly, especially in last reInvent. We announced new products on the infrastructure part. Habana Goldie-based easy to instant type and AWS training chip, which will be available this year. Gaudi-based instance provides 40% better price performance than current GPU-based EC2 instance for training deep learning models. And AWS Trainium is the second custom model machine learning chips designed by AWS to provide best price performance for model trainings in the cloud. Without further ado, let's jump into scenarios and talk about the new services. So our first one, we are going to talk about how to tackle anomaly detection, computer visions, and predictive maintenance for physical device via IoT services also. The first one we're going to look at is Amazon Lookout for Visions. In manufacturing to date, traditionally QA quality assurance has been a very manual process where we humans visually inspect and certify the product. While this might give us some flexibility in terms of defects that we can identify, but it's a very difficult problem to tackle at scale. As we know, manual process is very slow, and subsequently, this becomes a bottleneck for the throughput of the production line. Not only that, it generally can be error-prone. There are many automated solutions exist to handle this, like machine visions, a purpose-built rule-based machine, for example, which can identify certain defects in the production line. But this has some serious demerits, such as it's very expensive. And secondly, as their customer bill, they offer limited flexibility. But now with the new service, Amazon Lookout for Vision, all you have to do is to provide set of image which are anomaly and set of image which are good to look out for visions, and the service will take care of everything for you under the hook. It will try different algorithms and will eventually create a model that specifically solve the machine learning problem for you. And you don't need to worry about like the algorithm selection, tuning, or training and deployment or so. You get a ready-made model which is ready to use. How cool is it? The next service, Amazon Lookout for Equipment. It's under preview at the moment. Now, this one is basically to tackle the challenge in industry and manufacturing company facing today. Which is the ongoing maintenance of the equipment. Historically, most equipment maintenance is either reactive or preventative. Reactive means like machine breaks and you go fix it. Preventative, which means you perform regular intervals, checking to ensure that machines looks good also. However, in order to make it work, companies have historically needed skilled technicians and data scientists to place together with a complex solution from scratch. Now, with Amazon Lookout for Equipment, an API-based ML services can detect anomaly equipment behavior. With Lookout for Equipment, you can bring in historical time series data, past maintenance event generated for your industrial equipment, and can have up to 300 data tags from components such as sensors or actuators per model. Lookout for Equipment automatically tests the possible combinations and build an optimal machine learning model to learn the normal behavior of the equipment. It reads directly from Amazon S3 bucket, where you will publish your industrial data, such as the pressure, flow rate, RPMs, temperature, and power or so. After that, as a user, you can determine the value of time period to be used for training and assign an appropriate label. Given this information, Lookout for Equipment will launch a task to learn and create the best ML model for your particular use case. Next, we're going to talk about Amazon Monitron. Nowadays, companies are increasingly looking to add machine learning capability to industry environments such as manufacturing facility, fulfillment center, food processing plants, etc. A major challenge that many other industrial and manufacturing companies facing today is the ongoing maintenance of their equipment. Not only that, you need to have right types of sensor for the respective use case and connecting them together with IoT gateway and skilled technicians and also data scientists. How complex it can be. But you know, neither all companies have the existing sensor network in their manufacturing plant, nor they have ML expertise. And here comes Amazon Monitron, an end-to-end system that uses machine learning to detect abnormal behavior in industrial machinery, enabling you to implement predictive maintenance and reduce unplanned downtime. This new service includes a sensor to capture vibration and temperature data from equipment, which act as the gateway device to securely transfer data to AWS. Amazon Monitron can then detect abnormal equipment patterns and deliver results in minutes with no machine learning or cloud expertise required. So as you see, Monitron and Lookout for Equipment, they kind of do the similar things, job for you, like try to understand the anomaly detections for your equipment also. The big difference in between is Monitron provide some devices and some gateway services to make it easy to manage your plant environment. And on the Lookout for Equipment, it mainly like rely on you to stream the data onto S3 so that the service can manage the prediction for your equipment also.
This is fantastic, Tom. Do you mind, can you talk a little bit about some of the use cases that customers are thinking about using these new services for?
Yeah, definitely. For example, for Lookout for Visions, there is a pizza producer in Switzerland. They were using their custom build model on particular device to keep track the pizza's quality, also make sure that those pizza have enough cover on cheese on topping or so. However, once they change the product, they have challenged that the accuracy of the predictions is decreasing dramatically. And with adopting Lookout for Visions, they just potentially make them much easier. They don't need to prepare a lot in regard of model training. They prepare certain amount of data on good and anomaly pictures, and then train a new model, deploy it right away, and improve the accuracy right away. And for their new product also, they're pretty much happy with this service.
Fantastic.
Yeah, this is one of the interesting use case. All right, so I'm gonna move on. Now this is AWS Panorama, and this service is very interesting. It's actually like an upgrade version and enterprise level deep lens service also. Now over the past couple of decades, you know that there's big change on AI ML also, especially after 2012. Computer vision has gone from a topic discussed by academics to a tool used by business worldwide. All right, and computer vision is increasing being used, perform these inspection tasks using model running in the cloud. But however, the challenge on adopting those computer vision in a particular environment, there may be challenge on the latency requirement or intermittent connectivity to internet also, so that they can connect back to cloud. Now with computer vision model services, AWS Panorama, you can train a model in AWS SageMaker and then deploy it on the appliance. With that, this appliance can connect to your network and having those video feeds and capturing and monitoring those video feeds in your IP camera. And with the model deployed at edge, it can help generate alarms or help you to predict and in your environments on certain things also. And also we provide AWS Panorama SDK, which give the flexibility for manufacturer company to build their own particular camera with Panorama capability. This make the service much broad adoption possible. Secondly, in the next scenario, we're going to talk about like how to use the new services also to monitor your business application, detect anomalies, and also we'll talk about the time series forecasting new feature. Okay, organizations across all industry are looking to improve efficiency in their business through technology and automation. While challenge may differ, what's common is being able to identify defects and opportunity early, and often can lead to material cost saving and higher margins and better customer experience. Now, with this new service, Amazon Lookout for Metrics, you can detect anomalies in your business metrics. That can help you proactively monitor the health of your business, diagnose issues, and find opportunity quickly. And again, you don't need to have ML expertise. Nowadays, like in regard of the data feeding from AWS services such as S3, CloudWatch, and the data storage services such as Aurora, Redshift also, to our SaaS partners such as Makito, Zendesk, and Salesforce also. Their business metrics are all supported. Yeah, check it out. It's currently under preview at the moment. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the forecasting new feature, which is the weather index. So as you may know, in retail industry or in whatever business related to some sort of staffing requirement planning also, weather is kind of very important factor. So with the weather forecast in weather index here, we incorporating weather information for single decision and single location is much straightforward. And with this launch, you can include 14-day weather forecast for US and Europe location at the moment. And for sure, this service will expand it to the other region sooner or later. And to add the add weather, simply include the location information of your store and select the include weather in the console and API. Weather is currently good to try. I highly recommend that. If you are interested in this service, talk to our account manager and keep an eye on when this one will be landed in Sydney region, so that it can potentially help your business. Next, we're going to talk about some AI services which potentially are not much related to data scientists or ML practitioner, but certainly they potentially can help your business use cases also. The first one I want to lightly touch upon is the contact lens for Amazon Connect with real-time. Basically, Amazon Connect is getting popular as a call center services, and Contact Lens provide the AI analysis services to understand the call and the information also with real-time new feature. It allows our customer to do the real-time detection in regard of the call situation and try to create a quicker feedback loop for your business so that you can jump into a difficult call, or like when you transfer the call, you can make sure that the translated script being handed over to the next agent or so, make the call experience to be much easy and helpful. The next one we'd like to talk about is Amazon DevOps Guru. This is mainly for developer and operators. The service automatically detect issues to improve application availability and reduce expensive downtime also. You don't need to have any like ML experience also with using these services. Now, for this one, all you need to do is like make sure that what services you are ready, and then feeding those data into the service, and the service will create based on the feed and create a model for you, and then going to generate alert. Like you can set up alert also based on the detection also. Like the service currently in under preview. Go ahead and check it out. Next one, Kendra incremental learning. Now, pretty much this is a enhancement to optimize search relevance at scale using machine learning. I just quickly show you how it looks like. Now, with this screen, basically the searching result give the opportunity for your staff or people to do the rating on the searching result, and this kind of rating will be feeding to the retraining feedback loop, so that it can keep improving the model for your enterprise scale document searching. All right. Now we're going to jump on to talk about the embedded ML services for data storage services. The first one we want to talk about is related to Redshift, and the problem to tackle is regression and classification model directly with Redshift and with a SQL-like format. How that one looks like? Like, for example, like data analysis and database developer, if they want to leverage the data to do model training, nowadays is pretty challenging. Like, for example, they need to export, if they use your own environment, like export the data to a safe storage service such as S3 also, or even with like SageMaker, S3 the ideal location, and then set up all the access control also, and then manage the model training deployment, and then later on you're going to extract the data for the inference and help your business to make decision also. This is kind of complex process, and with the Amazon Redshift machine learning, we make it much easier for you. The way the service provide great flexibility. Like all you need to do is like to understand the SQL-like Redshift language also to do the query, and with those setup, at the backend, when you issue the command to create a user-defined function, basically linking to a set of data, and then it will fire up SageMaker autopilot to do the training. Once the training's been done, it will figure out the best performance candidate for your business problem, such as customer churn or a scoring prediction. And once that's done, when you want to evaluate it or you want to use the inference app for your business, you call a function, and then it will deploy the model into Redshift cluster. You don't need to pay extra for the inference part, and system will Redshift will manage all that, like the deployment, model deployment, inference, and the result consolidation for you. Much handy. Now let's have a quick look at the process. The first one, to create a model. The syntax looks very straightforward. For example, define the function like as a model. Define the function like this one, and mention that you want to create a model. And this is the data field. Especially specify the target field, which is customer churn. Okay. And also provide the IAM role and the S3 location to store the data for the training. And underneath, once these commands being easy, like mentioned in the previous slide, autopilot will be fired up and then do the training for you. Once the training's been done, system create model. And to evaluate your model, you can use like with the inference data to call that command. You can do the comparison on the data also, which you can manage the evaluation easily. Once you're happy with that one, if you're not happy, definitely use different field and give it another try with the same creation or so. And once you're happy with that, it's ready to go. You can use it right away and to do the model invocation for your business data. Yeah, that's the three typical Redshift language statement you need to use for the whole model training, evaluation, and inference. Also, I would like to quickly cover a bit and then hand it over to John. Like this one is especially for graph-based model. Now, graph-based model is getting much more attention lately. The main reason is mainly because like with graph model, it potentially provide better performance also for business. Now, with Amazon Neptune ML, it automates the heavy lifting of selecting and training the best ML model for graph data and lets users run machine learning on their graph directly using Neptune API and query also. As a result, you can create and train also and much easily. Like this job can be done like with hours instead of weeks. So basically, you make prediction on graph data without ML expertise, improve the accuracy of most prediction over 50% with adopting like graph-based model. Last but not least, this service is not part of the reInvent announcement, but it's good to mention that with the Amazon Athena ML Federation query, it's much easier for you to embed the ML inference into your data analytic process. Like basically the process looks like you train a model with SageMaker, deployed it. Once that's done, you can invoke the model from Athena directly and get the result right away. Much simple and easy. All right, I finished my section. John, hand it back to you.
Thanks, Tom. That's fantastic. Let me go to my slideshow. Great. So we've heard a lot of really interesting insights from Evgeny, talking about all of the new features that allow you to sort of manage data throughout the Lakehouse architecture and work with other services. And Tom's given us a great overview of that AI services level where we're building specific functionality to solve key problems in the business. But as Tom indicated, there's a range of situations where you have your own data science teams and you want to build bespoke models that are very specific to your situation. So I think it's worthwhile if we step back a little bit and just talk about some of the problems that we generally face in the data science development process, because at AWS, we've had the privilege of getting to work with large numbers of data science teams and ML engineers. So we've gained some understanding of both what are the trends happening in the industry and the common pain points. And the reason we want to bring this up is because understanding how where these pain points are grouped together helps you understand a lot of the new releases that have come through in the SageMaker Studio services. So we're all familiar, I guess, with the process of at a high level of what doing data science involves. I've distilled this down to a really simple 3-stage diagram. We all know that there's essentially some process of collecting and collating and preparing data, depicted on the left-hand side. There's a process of doing experiments on that data, building models and evaluating them, depicted by the microscope in the middle. And then there's a process of then deploying and integrating that model and then monitoring it as we move forward. Now, the reality is for most data science teams, they're not working on one project in isolation. There's often multiple competing projects running at the same time. And there may be some integration between these projects. You might need to be managing data sources that are being used among them, or there may be dependencies between these models when they go to production if it's a complicated problem. And in reality, as the data science practice matures, there'll be multiple different versions of these models through time. So all of this creates a management problem. You need to be able to make sure that the models and the versions that go to production are the ones that you want in production, and they're able to marshal all of the required resources in order to do their job. So what that effectively means is what we see is two sets of problems, upstream and downstream. So on the upstream side, there's a whole set of problems around making sure there's consistency in the data that's coming through to these machine learning processes, that you're able to reuse features as much as possible, and every data scientist is not reinventing the wheel every time they start a new project, and that whatever features you are using in your modeling are able to be productionized, and there's a consistency there in how they're generated both in modeling and at production time. On the downstream side, you want to be able to make sure that the model you build can be integrated with the desired services in the right and a timely fashion, that anything you do, both in terms of producing experimental results or producing pipelines and workflows, can be reproduced as your models move from dev to prod, and that there is some process that gives you deployment oversight, that you're not you don't just a single individual isn't responsible for pushing the model into production and affecting the business system, that you have the tools you need in order to ensure that the right people sign off on it before it makes its way to production. So these two families of problems has led to kind of emerging new disciplines in the data science world. Data engineering is something that's been around quite a bit longer. You could say that it's somewhat of an overlap discipline. Many data scientists would say that a large part of their job is data engineering, but some organizations are choosing to move the data engineering out into a separate discipline. And that ML operations, or ML ops as it's often called, is borrowing some of the great ideas from software development and DevOps, but putting a particular machine learning flavor on it. So these two families of disciplines has sparked this is where a lot of our new development is going. So the tooling we're releasing is not necessarily just for data scientists or data engineers, but it's designed to facilitate, to make doing that work easier, and to also encourage collaboration between data engineering and data science teams. So we've heard about AWS Glue Data Brew from Evgeny before, but I'll be talking about a couple of other features in this space. And on the ML ops side, we've got a range of different features here that that come in at different points in the development and deployment process. So let's talk about some scenarios in the same way that Tom did. We want to talk about specific situations and the AWS services that are looking to solve that. Data engineers and data scientists want to be able to explore and prepare data sets so that they can be used as input features for a model. So Evgeny spoke about the power of Glue Studio and Glue Data Brew, which give that both the power of a serverless Spark infrastructure for running data preparation jobs, as well as a no-code environment for building standard transformations. But one of the things that we observe is that many data scientists want to be able to do mix sort of standard transformations with their own custom code, and they want to be able to do it in a way that they can integrate with their machine learning pipeline. So that's why we're introducing Amazon SageMaker Data Wrangler. It's basically a a visual tool for building data preparation flows, but that gives you the flexibility to build your own custom transformations using PySpark, SQL, or Python Pandas syntax. It's integrated into SageMaker Studio, which is the integrated development environment we have built from the ground up for data scientists and machine learning engineers, so that you can use Data Wrangler to quickly build a data preparation pipeline, and that we give you a wide array of different ways of then exporting that pipeline and integrating with other services. You can get code, export Python code if you need to be able to run that completely standalone. It will export a notebook for you which shows you how to run a data wrangler job. So as a SageMaker processing job that you can then run to write data back to S3 for downstream processes to use. It also allows you to build a process that will integrate with SageMaker pipelines, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about later on in this presentation, as well as it generates sample code for integrating data preparation that you've done in Data Wrangler directly into the SageMaker feature store. So wide array of flexibility, both in how you build that data preparation pipeline and with the services you can integrate it with. So continuing on with that theme, one of the next considerations that data engineers and scientists want to look at is that these data preparation pipelines ultimately build features for the model. And as we spoke about at the start of this presentation, we want to ensure that you're getting maximum reuse of those features, and they're not being rebuilt every time. And we also want to solve those problems about making sure data and features used in development of models are available at production. So that's why we're introducing Amazon SageMaker Feature Store. It gives you the power to build features once using a standardized code to define that feature in such a way that we give you. One of the key features here is that you can configure from the start whether these are features that are only required for offline, so essentially to build a model and then perhaps do batch scoring, that we're in situations where you don't need real-time scoring, or you can configure to have an online store as well. So when you need to say run your models as people are interacting with your apps or your websites, you can have the features available and ready to go in a low latency feature store that's synchronized with that offline feature store, so that your application can get the features it needs when it needs them. And you don't have to worry about ensuring that you've got synchronization between the way the features are built in the batch training and the batch scoring system and the online real-time system. There's a wide array of other great features to the Amazon SageMaker Feature Store. It's available inside as a Glue data catalog that can be queried inside Amazon Athena, so that you've got maximal sort of reuse, both in terms of data science and analytics for the features you've got in the feature store, as well as the standard kind of security and access controls that you've come to expect from AWS. So only those data scientists who have access to those features will be able to see them when they're using SageMaker Studio. So final section in this scenario where we're talking about some of the problems faced by engineers and data scientists. Not only do we want to be able to prepare those data sets and use them as features in the model, we also want to understand the data and if there's any potential problems with it. So Data Brew has the capacity to do profiling in your data, which data engineers can use in that sort of preparation process. But we also want to introduce Amazon SageMaker Clarify, which gives you the ability to do multiple different kinds of investigations into your data and models. So one of the biggest ones here is bias, the capacity to look at the data you have before you build a model and understand whether there's any potential bias in that could result in your model doing harm. So SageMaker Clarify it provides you a new type of SageMaker processing job that will run a wide array of tests across your data. Once you define the groups that you want to investigate for potential bias, it will then allow you to compare any potential bias in the data set with potential bias that's in the final model. So you can see whether the modeling work you've done has either alleviated or exacerbated some potential bias in the model. SageMaker Clarify also allows you to explore the explainability of your models through a technique called SHAP values. And if you want to know more about that, I strongly encourage you to reach out and have a conversation. It's a really exciting area. So it's also worthwhile emphasizing SageMaker Clarify works across the whole ML lifecycle, as I said before, on the data before you build the model, but you can also employ it once you get to production to investigate whether your model is potentially developing any bias or any problems once it's in production and being used. So another key feature we've released is aimed at addressing how you go about debugging your models. So SageMaker Debugger gives you the capacity to give you machine learning specific techniques as to identify problems in your model build process. So you can monitor things like the gradient, looking for shrinking or expanding gradient. You can look at whether your optimization parameters are not changing or whether certain parameters are not being used. There's a bunch of standardized ways for using on our existing containers, as well as you can build custom metrics from the ground up. A bunch of key features there, but let's talk about the final one of the exciting developments that I've spoke about, which is how do we go about automating the deployment of your models, including the choice of hardware, etc., in that MLOps environment. So we're introducing Amazon SageMaker Pipelines, which is a great new feature that allows you to, using an API, you can build a sequence of steps that you need to go through in order to build and deploy a model, and you've got multiple opportunities to, say, introduce manual processes where people can check off that either this model has no bias, it's performing the way we want it to, and it's got the right level of performance in terms of latency before we move it to production. It supports cross-account deployments and gives you a very, very flexible framework for building your own MLOps pipelines. So with the last few minutes, I'd like to hand it back to Chris to wrap up and ask those final couple of questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John and Tom, for the great deep dive. As quite often is the case, I actually feel a lot smarter when I'm in the room with folks like John and Tom who are talking about these machine learning capabilities. So let's move on to our final quiz here, and I'm just going to bring it up. And here we are. Okay, cool. So what new SageMaker tool helps prepare data for machine learning applications with a visual interface? SageMaker Cat Wrangler, SageMaker Data Brew, SageMaker Data Wrangler, or SageMaker Visual Code? What do we got? Oh, there's someone there with it. Awesome. Father Goblin. Fantastic. Well done. And the last of our quizzes. Last question. What tool is best to share and discover features? Amazon Feature Sharer, SageMaker Data Wrangler, SageMaker Feature Store, or Amazon Featured Store. So have we got anyone who is prepared to put it on the line for the last voucher? Oh, I'm not going to read out that person's name, but they have won. Oh, with D? No, you have not. Sorry. Next person. Anyone? Yeah, and D is not correct, so it's still up for grabs. Just there, I'll also put up a survey. As I mentioned, this is one of the first times that we've run an event like this on Twitch, and so really keen to get your feedback. And we've also got another 3 recaps here on a couple of different areas coming over the next couple of weeks. We've got architecture special. We've got a session that's specifically for IT managers, and then we've also got a section specifically for developers. So please get involved in those. Again, there'll be prizes. People who are going to be really diving into deep into some of those features that have come out recently. Have we got a winner? We do. All right. Awesome. And now with that, please do fill out the survey at slido.com. Really appreciate everyone's time today. Any parting comments from any of the folks on the line? No? All good. Awesome. Well, again, if you've got any questions, please reach out to your account teams. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.